Good morning traders, welcome to this London session market review for the ICT Silver Bullet, May 24th, 2023. We're going to be looking at EURUSD and doing something a little bit different this morning. I actually recorded a live trade that I took based on the analysis that I created. So I recorded the full process and we'll take a walk through now just to see the live execution and how that actually worked. So I hope you find this useful and let's jump straight into the session. Before we review the full analysis and how I got to this trade, I thought some of you may appreciate seeing the actual execution first of all to save you time. You might not be interested in the full analysis. So this is the execution based on a fair value gap entry, bouncing off a breaker block, and then ultimately we drop down to hit take profit quite nicely. So with that shown now, let's jump into the actual analysis on how we arrived to the conclusion that a short trade would be worthwhile. So we can see at this point, I'm just taking a look on the daily time frame just to see where our potential draws on liquidity are. We've got sell side liquidity, I've mistakenly marked that wrong. We've got sell side liquidity below us from a daily low that we just missed yesterday. We'll now look on the 15-minute chart, just putting on the sessions indicator so we can see what yesterday's sessions and today's sessions look like. And here we can see that we're going to mark out yesterday's low, which just failed to take out that sell side liquidity on the daily range. So that's a nice draw on liquidity in my opinion. We've got relative equal lows below us. And we're marking out the high here for the New York session from yesterday as well. Which is potential buy side liquidity above us. We've got the London session high here, so that's the current high for this morning. We've already taken the Asia session high out and we are currently closing back inside, or at least testing the range high from Asia. You can see highlighted in yellow as well on this screen, that's the new day opening gap from this morning. And then that's overlaid over a new week opening gap from earlier on. 15-minute fair value gap, which we have respected from the London session high. And this, if we look, we've got actually a balanced price range there. So we've got a fair value gap going bullish side and a fair value gap coming to the bearish side as well. Given the power that I've seen with balanced price ranges, this does give me a bearish bias for the session. So we've got some extra buy side liquidity just above us, which again we can see we've taken out and closed back inside that range again. And then I'm just making a note of the Asia session low as well, which is a potential draw on liquidity. Also inside the new day opening gap and earlier new week opening gap that we saw. Now we've got the levels marked out on EURUSD, we move over to the dollar index, the DXY, to do the same process again. We know that the euro and the DXY are negatively correlated, and then we can look for any kind of cracks in correlation to help give us additional confluence for any trades that we decide to take. So we're looking at a daily fair value gap that we've rejected from on the DXY. We may come slightly higher today to fill that fair value gap, which is why I'm noting that level as buy side. And you'll see just under price action I've notified a volume imbalance between the dailies, so that'll potentially get filled at some point in the near future. Having a bullish bias on the DXY today reinforces my thesis that I'm slightly bearish on euro. Here we've skipped forward a little bit just to save a bit of time, and we're just onto the 15-minute time frame now, where I'm just looking for relative equal highs, swing lows, just to mark out our levels now on the 15-minute. So we can see here that we're rejecting off a balanced price range on the 15-minute from yesterday's session. And then what I like to do is we come into the session getting ready to trade this, looking for our setups, is have Dixie and the euro side by side here, so I can look for any cracks in correlation. My execution time frame is going to be on the 1 minute, so we'll drop down to the 1 minute time frame here and now start looking for our entry model. So I have a bearish bias for Euro USD, meaning that I'm looking for price to drop and take out some sell side liquidity. So I'm just looking for any kind of fair value gaps now, driving price down towards that sell side, and we'll keep an eye on the Dixie just to look for price driving upwards, because that should be negatively correlated. And we can see here that into the Silver Bullet hour we have swept a little bit of liquidity on Euro USD on the 1 minute. So now that we've grabbed a tiny bit of liquidity, we could potentially see that displacement coming down. I'm just noting a breaker block here. So this is the last bearish candle that was created before we took the high of the session out. So that is a 1 minute breaker block. So we've taken a little bit of buy side, but we have got a breaker block above us. So my thoughts at this point were that I would like to see that breaker block tapped and then start breaking structure to the downside. We'll skip forward here because I'm just going to mess around trying to sort out my template for breakers. So with the magic of editing, we've skipped forward by a couple of minutes now. Just checking here Forex Factory to see what red news we've got for this morning, see if there's anything going to affect today's trade. And the only thing I can see is the FOMC meetings, which are not until later on this evening. So there's nothing to worry about there. And so at this point, it's just a case of trying to be patient and waiting for price to give us the setup. We'll hit fast forward here just to kind of skip through this part. I'm just running through, marking some additional levels of interest, specifically bullish levels that we might get drawn to later on in the day. And as we come back to live time, we can see we're just about to enter that breaker block now. So this is the real area of interest that I was interested in when I saw this hitting. So here I'm just checking between Dixie and the Euro just to see if we've got any kind of SMT developing. We can see that the Dixie chart is failing to make new lows, whereas Euro USD is making new highs. So again, this negative correlation, if Euro's making new highs, then Dixie should be making new lows. So that's not happening. You can see a really strong reaction from the Euro here off that breaker block, and this SMT is just confirming that that reaction is a valid move in my opinion. So we can see at this point we've left a fair value gap. We can see that the Dixie is also breaking higher with displacement as well. Now it's just a case of waiting patiently to see if we can get the entry. Small breaker structure there on the Euro. I can't stress enough what's giving me the real interest that I want to be getting in on this trade with my bearish bias is the fact that we did have SMT there. So because we've had the break of structure, I'm just looking now for displacement to the downside on the Euro USD and then entry on a fair value gap. So as soon as we see that, I'll be entering in onto my trade. We'll just fast forward through this section while price is doing its thing. Just checking on the 2 minute time frames and again monitoring Dixie just to see how things go. Back on the 1 minute now, waiting for our fair value gap, which potentially forming here. So the first potential entry, if we get a candle close, leaving that fair value gap, will be a return there. Again, we're going 5 pip stop, 5 pip take profit, which is my trading plan. I like to be in and out of the trade within 10 minutes. So let's see if this develops. Again, we'll just fast forward a little bit just to save some time for you guys. Don't just get bored. See that fair value gap was left. At this point, I'm just loading up MetaTrader, ready to input my entry. And then we can see now we are leaving a fair value gap lower down. I'm going to mark this out just so that you guys can see the potential fair value gap that has developed. However, this wouldn't be the entry that I want to take because we're getting too close to the liquidity levels below. We don't have enough room for me to get a decent take profit, so the risk to reward is diminished. I'll skip forward a little bit in time here, but we can see that that first fair value gap was hit. So if you were to enter there, you could potentially be in the trade already. But it is pulling back nicely. Again, we're keeping an eye on Dixie. So one thing that we can see is the Dixie's taking the buy side liquidity now. So this is a little concerning because after buy side's been taken on the Dixie, we might get a stronger pullback. We have got levels of liquidity above, as you can see on the Dixie, so there are areas that it can draw to, but having taken a previous session high out, there is a potential reversal on the Dixie. Now, what we'll get by that is if the Dixie starts reversing, obviously Euro is going to start pumping higher, which would invalidate my bearish trade. So the hope is that the Dixie kind of consolidates here. We can get tagged in and allow the Euro to drive for some additional liquidity. We need to keep a close eye on the Dixie just to make sure that we're really not pulling back hard, which would invalidate the trade. So here we've got triggered in, so we're now in the live trade. In order to stop myself micromanaging this trade, which I've been doing recently and causing myself unnecessary losses, at this point I just walked out of the room and just set an alert for the take profit. And I'll come back later once we've either hit stop loss or hit the take profit target. Let's fast forward now and see how this plays out. So here we can see a really good reaction, which is exactly what we want. And then, as my alerts are triggering off, and I'm thinking, yes, this is the one, we haven't hit take profit and we start reversing, which always happens. It's the most frustrating thing ever, where you miss your take profit by a couple of ticks, but it's something you need to learn to live with. It seems to happen to me with every single trade. It just teases my take profit, and then we'll pull back again. And so you can see that we've been in this trade now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. So I have a 10-minute window where I want to be taking profits or going to break even after 10 minutes, or obviously closing in a loss if we've not got to take profit. You can see at this point I'm going to go break even because we're so close to take profit. I don't want this pulling back on me and putting me into a losing position when I've been almost there. So this is now possibly micromanaging the trade, but it's what it's like in live action. This is what you kind of go through. So this is the MetaTrader on my demo account. So this is just adjusting the stop loss to break even in demo as well. And we'll hang on this just to see if we tag it out, so you can see the take profit hit live, closed out manually there because I would hate for it not to take profit by the spread. We did fully hit it, so that was the trade in live time, and there we go. Live trade executed in the ICT Silver Bullet hour for the London session on EURUSD. Obviously we've taken my 5 pip take profit, which is all I go for. I'm happy with that. Closed down for the session now. We do have targets lower down, so we could potentially be looking at taking the sell side that we marked out earlier, depending on how brave you are and how patient you are, and also keenly watching what's going on with the Dixie. We can see again Dixie's just taken the high again, but I am conscious that this is a pretty significant level on the Dixie. So I hope you found that useful. Slightly different video to what I've done previously, slightly longer going through it this way. However, at least you could see a live execution and the process that I go through to mark out my levels and then execute. Please leave your comments and questions down below. I'll be happy to review your feedback and get back to you and help out if I can. And likewise, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And I'll be back later on today with a New York session review for the US 500. Alright, thanks guys, I'll speak to you later.